Hey there, What Next listener. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know about a story coming up a little bit later in the show. It's from our partners at Macy's. For the last 19 years, Macy's has partnered with Reading is Fundamental, the nation's largest children's literacy nonprofit. It provides 15 million free books to kids all around the country. From July 1st to 31st, you can support Reading is Fundamental by rounding up your Macy's in-store purchase or donating online. Stick around to hear from Ingrid, an elementary school principal, and find out how Reading is Fundamental has impacted students in her school and greater community. I got a question for you. What's your summer anthem? Is it Olivia Rodrigo's Vampire? Maybe you've still got Miley Cyrus's Flowers on repeat. But I called up Jason Lipshutz over at Billboard to talk about a very different chart topper. This is country music star Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town. And this week, it debuted at number 2 on Billboard's Hot 100. Would you call Try That in a Small Town the breakout hit of the summer?
Oh, man, that is a depressing question. I don't know. I don't know if I would call it that quite yet. It's certainly the story in music of this week and potentially this month.
Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's super hummable. Like, I could maybe hum it right now. And it also has an interesting rhyme structure, which I think helps it along. Like, he has this lyric, try that in a small town, see how far you make it down the road. And it's just like, it's a little bit of fun with the lyrics that kind of works structurally, if I'm just thinking about it divorced from anything else.
Oh, yeah. And the interesting thing is, like, Jason Aldean, even though he did not write this song, he certainly knows how to deliver a song like this. Every conversation I've had over the past week is, hey, have you checked out this Jason Aldean song? And what is going on with this song? And why is it doing so well?
The reason so many people are asking about this song is because of its message. Jason Lipshutz at Billboard calls it a DogWhistle Anthem. That's because its basic premise is that cities are crime-ridden pits and small towns are bucolic places with neighbors helping neighbors. Things get really problematic in the music video, where lyrics serve as rolling commentary over footage of Black Lives Matter protests and looting.
There's just clips of big cities descending into chaos, and basically the music video makes clear that, hey, vigilante justice, like when this stuff is going on, vigilante justice is more than justified.
It's kind of like a Fox News segment, but like if it had a baby with country music.
It's absolutely that. It really is. And we've seen over the past few years, other artists make more explicit conservative singles. And some of them have hit the Hot 100. Some of them have kind of bubbled up on iTunes. But I think the fact that this was so subtle, it really is a kind of a perfect thing for Jason Aldean, because he can kind of nod toward conservatism while also having a degree of deniability, right? So he can say like all of these messages out in the song and video, but also say like, hey, that's not what I meant. Hey, come on, I'm just singing about small town pride.
In other words, this otherwise unremarkable country song has leveraged thinly veiled racial grievance into massive success. And in the process, both the song and its singer have become main characters in the culture wars. Do you think Jason Aldean knew what he was doing when he made this song?
You know, I don't think he did, but it doesn't matter because it still had the same effect.
Today on the show, why Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town is suddenly everywhere. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
This podcast is brought to you by Slate Studios and Macy's. Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl, Elena. I'm a writer, creator, and a change maker. And here's a fact that could use some serious changing. Did you know that 25 million children in the U.S. cannot read proficiently? That's what is so exciting about Macy's partnership with Reading is Fundamental, the largest children's literacy nonprofit in the nation. They're on a mission to ensure all children have the ability to read and succeed. It's Ingrid's mission, too.
I'm Dr. Ingrid Bynum, the proud principal of a K-8 school located in Virginia. So when I was growing up, my family was poor and we could not afford extras such as books. When I was in fourth grade, Reading is Fundamental came to my school to do a book distribution, and Riff gave me the very first book I ever owned. And that book changed the trajectory of my life. It was the start to my love of reading. As a principal, the best part about Riff is that every child in the school receives books, regardless of their circumstances. Macy's has been pivotal in helping Riff provide new books and resources to students who need them the most. One book to change a child's life. When a child becomes a reader, it opens up many doors for opportunity for them to have an amazing future.
Now's the time to inspire a passion for reading among all children. This July, when you round up your purchase at Macy's or donate online, you'll help fund Reading is Fundamental in their efforts to close the youth literacy gap across America. Find out how Macy's is creating brighter futures for all at macys.com/purpose.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Whether you're driving, cooking, or doing laundry, Progressive knows the podcasts you listen to go best when they're bundled with another activity, much like how their Progressive home and auto policies go best when they're bundled. Having these two policies together makes taking care of your insurance easier and could help you save too. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save nearly $800 on average. That's a whole lot of savings and protection for your favorite podcast listening activities, like going on a road trip, cooking dinner, and even hitting the gym. Yep, your home and your car are even easier to protect when you bundle your insurance together. Find your perfect combo. Get a home and car insurance quote at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $793 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary.
Okay, let's start off by explaining exactly who Jason Aldean is and what he's known for. He's a country singer, obviously, and it seems like he's pretty well known, but he's not necessarily a household name. Like, how did he first start getting popular?
Yeah, so Jason Aldean, who is from Macon, Georgia, broke through in the late 2000s and early 2010s, right? This was exactly around the time of bro country bubbling up into the mainstream.
Okay, what is bro country?
So it's kind of like a popular country strain in which a lot of male artists sing about bro things.
Smoke rolling out the window and ice cold beer sitting in the console.
And it really was driven by the kind of macho imagery of Luke Bryan and Florida Georgia Line and Jason Aldean, which was basically like, these are really kind of alpha males who are also delivering like really nice melodies, but also doing it in kind of like a tough way. I always think of Cruise by Florida Georgia Line as kind of the go-to bro country song. So anyway, he broke out in the kind of the turn of the 2000s into the 2010s, and he was a successful country star throughout the 2010s. He had 4 #1 albums, 10 #1 country hits. He had a couple crossover songs on the Hot 100, but he hasn't, before this month, did not have any top 10 hits on the Hot 100 since 2011.
So if I went on a Jason Aldean like tour, if I went to a show, like where am I going? It's not a stadium, I guess.
No, not a stadium, but he's been a pretty regular arena and amphitheater presence. And, you know, it's interesting because this moment, this kind of flare up for Try That in a Small Town, has come at a time where he's now a veteran. Like, he's been around for 15 plus years, and his commercial appeal has kind of slowed down to some degree, which is natural for any artist who's been around this long.
So this is giving him some new life.
Exactly, yeah.
This is not the first controversy involving Jason Aldean. He's been criticized for wearing blackface and for performing in a Confederate flag t-shirt. But he's also tried to describe himself as apolitical. Back in 2016, he told Rolling Stone he wanted to stay out of politics, and he declined to answer questions about whether he supported Donald Trump. This all started to shift in 2020. That's when Aldean posted photos with Trump. During the pandemic, he made anti-mask comments at one of his shows, and his wife has posted photos of their young kids in T-shirts reading "Hidin' from Biden."
I think anyone kind of paying attention to Jason Aldean's statements over the years would probably conclude that he's a little bit more conservative than liberal, but he's never been super outspoken as a political operative.
Okay, so all this kind of brings us to the new song, Try That in a Small Town. It's gotten a ton of attention, even though it was released in May, so it spent sort of weeks just sitting there. When the song first came out, it sounds like it wasn't really on your radar. And then it was the music video that broke through. Can we just talk about the music video? Because obviously this is audio. The listeners won't be able to see it. But I want the listeners to understand it because it is striking in what it looks like. Like you're seeing Jason Aldean performing in front of a courthouse, and then kind of layered over, you get these grainy cell phony images of protesters, images of people, you know, robbing a liquor store sort of things, just sort of contrasted with him, basically, right?
Yeah, it really is sort of an anti-protester music video. And the interesting thing is there's some of that in the song.
Pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like.
In the first verse, he kind of talks about disrespect for cops and spitting in the face of police officers. And, you know, that doesn't fly in his small town. So you hear a little bit of that. And then in the second verse, he talks about got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're going to round up the guns, etc. So, but really, the music video is so vehemently anti-protester. And it's just basically saying, like, if you're protesting anything, then you are absolutely disrespecting the United States and you are a violent criminal.
It's not just that, though. It conflates things because it presents, you know, videos of actual crimes being committed side by side with protesters as if like these are the same.
Exactly.
And then back to Jason Aldean, you know, I got my cowboy hat on. I'm in front of a courthouse, like, you know, American flag. This is what I'm about.
Exactly. Those clips of the actual crimes being committed are placed exactly side by side in the same exact sort of grainy footage as just people like protesting. and the thing is, like, it's come out that a lot of that footage, or at least some of that footage, wasn't even in the United States. Like some of it was from Canadian protests. So it really is just sort of like a grab bag of, hey, general protesting. It's the same as robbing a liquor store, and we're against that. And again, you know, the video ends with this farmer saying, like, we help each other in our small town. And, you know, so it really is this sort of yin and yang of how to act in the US and how not to act.
Yeah. And then we should talk about where Jason Aldean shot this video, because he's performing in front of a very pretty lit up courthouse at night. It's all white, but the history of this place is very ugly. Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, that's really, it's interesting because, you know, there's no nod to exactly where the courthouse is in the music video. It doesn't identify the courthouse by name or have any flashback to it. But basically, if you know anything about the history of that courthouse, you know that there was a famous, very infamous public lynching that occurred there almost 100 years ago in 1927, where basically a group of like absolute awful people rounded up and lynched a person of color. And that's really where the outrage began.
And it strains credulity that no one involved in the production of this music video knew that history.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that I'm sure someone involved in the production was aware of the history of the courthouse. Maybe not everyone involved in the production. Maybe not even Jason Aldean. Maybe he didn't know the history of the courthouse and was just told, hey, let's film it here. And he said, cool. But I'm sure someone had to be aware of the kind of awful history of where they were filming this music video.
So when people started pointing out, like, hey, this isn't a great look, what happened?
So really the kind of bellwether event was the CMT banning
country music television.
Right. Yeah. So CMT is basically, it really does sort of function how MTV did 15 or 20 years ago, still playing music videos regularly, still having a ton of support from the country music industry. And CMT banning this video really was kind of a surprise, just because not that they weren't justified in doing so, but CMT is not in the business of causing controversy and banning music videos. That's a pretty rare act for them. So that's really where it became, oh my goodness, like this is a huge thing, and kind of a rallying cry for the conservatives who said, hey, why are you banning this? He's not even saying or doing anything. This is cancel culture. We're going to call into Fox News and we're going to buy this song on iTunes.
So CMT is trying to cancel Jason Aldean's Try That in a Small Town video because people are saying that it's racist. It's simply not. It's talking.
Aldean's song, which never even mentioned race at all, is being called a lynching anthem in the mainstream media. Watch this.
So how has Jason Aldean responded to all this controversy around his song?
He really has played into the kind of deniability of its messaging and basically played into, this is a small town anthem. Don't get it twisted. He spoke about the song a couple nights ago at a concert of his. Obviously, there were like raucous cheers for him in support of the song.
If people don't like what you say, they try and make sure that they can cancel you, which means try and ruin your life, ruin everything. One thing I saw this week was a bunch of country music fans that could see through a lot of the bullshit, all right?
He hasn't really kind of sharpened his political stance at all, even though the song has become a conservative rallying cry. He's just more said, hey, this is a small town anthem. I hope you like it. Like, I'm not racist.
People that come to my shows, you guys know what I'm about. You know what I stand for. I've never shied away from that at all.
It's so funny that he's talking about being canceled. I mean, he's number 2 on the Billboard charts.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Is,
I would like to be canceled in this way.
Me too. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing, is just like, it really is kind of this outrage tornado where Jason Aldean can cry about being canceled. His supporters can buy the song on iTunes and download it and stream it so that it won't be canceled. And it's this enormous impact up to the second biggest song in the country.
So all of this back and forth, the outrage tornado, as you've framed it, it's really meant that this song is broken through in a way that I feel like country music doesn't get talked about outside of the music industry. Like, I don't know that I would have heard this song without this controversy. But it's sort of funny to me because you've also said that this song is actually coming out at a really interesting time for country music. Can you explain?
Country music is having an enormous commercial year, and it probably the best year for country music that I honestly can remember. And if you look at the top of the Hot 100, you have Try That in a Small Town at number 2, but right below it are Last Night by Morgan Wallen, which has been the biggest hit of the year in terms of charts. I believe 14 weeks at number 1 on the Hot 100. It is truly an all-time hit single. And then you also have Fast Car, the Tracy Chapman cover by Luke Combs, which has been a mainstay in the top 5 of the chart. So you have this controversy coming when country radio is totally reinvigorated with really big stars. And right now, this whole Jason Aldean thing is happening at a time when country music should be taking a victory lap.
When we come back, if country music is thriving, does Try That in a Small Town represent where Nashville's headed? Okay, so I want to get into where this Jason Aldean controversy stands within the broader context of country music, because it's having such a big year. And because the industry has a reputation for being very white, very aligned with right-wing politics. But of course, it's a genre with a rich history of Black artists really pushing the sound forward also. It's just that we don't really talk about that as much. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, I think so. And, the main thing to realize about the country music industry over the past 5 years or so is that they have made strides and demonstrable strides to become more inclusive. They do not want to be the hard right listenership genre. They do not want to be the all white male genre. So they, if you watch any kind of country award show, there is many more women performing and people of color performing, and there is LGBTQ presence performing. And I think that there has been some success in those strides made, not an overwhelming amount of success, but at least some.
Yeah. I mean, is there like one artist who's like the anti-Jason Aldean out there?
I would probably say Maren Morris, who has been pretty vocal about her political leanings. Obviously, she's been very supportive of liberal causes. Recently, we had her on the cover of Billboard with a handful of drag stars protesting the drag ban in Tennessee, just kind of one cause that she's taken up. But also you have a group like Brothers Osburn, which was a best-selling country duo, and one of the members came out as gay and received a good amount of support from the country community, and basically saying like, look, we are not the country music world that you think you know. We are trying to be more inclusive and more accepting and more diverse. And again, like what we've seen over the past few years to kind of combat that country music industry push for inclusion and diversity are these hard conservative anthems that, Jason Aldean is not the first artist to kind of have this groundswell of conservative support. There is a base of listeners out there that want these sort of super conservative anthems.
Yeah. I mean, you've talked about this other artist, Morgan Wallen, who's incredibly dominant on the charts. And in some ways really shows how artists are straddling this line in terms of conservative beliefs and, how they present themselves in public. Can you talk a little bit about him and how important he's been to country music and what his story tells you?
Yeah, so Morgan Wallen has been the biggest star in country music this year, certainly, and I would argue over the past 5 years. He is someone who has courted controversy, most notably when he got caught on video using the N-word in early 2021. That received a quick backlash, not only from kind of all music listeners, but also his label, which condemned it.
Yeah, early 2021, it's like right around racial justice protests. It's just the timing is like, what?
Yeah, it was really like, I believe it was the beginning of that year and 6 or 7 months removed from all of the protests of the summer of 2020. So yeah, I mean, he had a huge album that year, but its impact culturally was a little muted because he was banned from award shows. He did not receive any Grammy nominations. In any other year, he probably would have. But basically, he was cast aside by the sort of cultural country music institutions, even as his album kept getting streamed and tons of sales. Now, 2023, he's back with a new album. It has been number one on the Billboard 200 chart for months on end. And, the country music world has sort of welcomed him back in. They've sort of said, look, he's apologized, he's raised money, he's worked with activists. Like it's been a little bit of let bygones be bygones from the country music industry.
It really feels like country music is at this crossroads here. Like you have some people in the industry who really want to shift it away from the stereotype of what country music is, which is, anti-Black, conservative, white. But then you have people who are these commercial hits. How does this play out? It just seems like they're fighting it out right now.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting few weeks and months, especially for Jason Aldean, because this song is doing enormously well right now. It is number 2 on the Hot 100. It is his biggest hit in years. But as it falls back down, as the controversy dies down, it's going to be interesting because I would project that he's alienated at least some listeners, right? Like it has to be a good amount of people who like Jason Aldean, like his country anthems, enjoy him, but see this video and hear this song and are like, nope, I'm out. Like this, I'm not going to support this guy. So it's going to be interesting to see where his career goes from here.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can see just in his story how attempts to sort of limit his reach actually made him potentially reach more people. Like when Country Music Television said we're not going to air this video, all of a sudden, like, boom, he was zooming up the charts.
Yeah, I would argue that CMT banning the video was an enormous success for Jason Aldean. And you look, like the reality is like the video is still up on YouTube. He's still on tour. You know, the song's number 2. He's doing fine. I do think that, to your point, country music is and has long been in a precarious position where, okay, we have to understand our fan base and what a faction of that fan base is, which is deeply conservative. And meanwhile, I do believe that the efforts for the country institutions to progress and diversify and get into the new decade and kind of join the new discourse around all of music identity is genuine. I do think that they realize that if we're just the hard right music, that's going to extremely limit their appeal. So they have to get bigger and they have to appeal to more listeners.
It's hard to do that when Jason Aldean is like your poster boy.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing is like a lot of people love this song and love its messaging just in the same way that, you know, a lot of people supported Morgan Wallen in spite of what happened in 2021.
Jason Lipshutz, I'm super grateful for your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Jason Lipshutz is the Senior Director of Music at Billboard. After a week of controversy, reporters noticed that the video for Try That in a Small Town was quietly edited. Footage from a 2020 Black Lives Matter demonstration in Atlanta got removed. And that's our show. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Madeline Ducharme, and Anna Phillips. We are led by Alicia Montgomery with a little help from Susan Matthews. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate. And I'm Mary Harris. I'm handing things off to Lizzie O'Leary and the What Next TBD crew. I will be back in this feed on Monday. Catch you then.
Macy's is committed to creating brighter futures for all. Throughout June, join Macy's in celebrating Pride Month by supporting the Trevor Project, whose mission is to provide life-saving suicide prevention services for LGBTQ young people. Just round up your next in-store purchase or donate online to the Trevor Project. Shop LGBTQ-owned brands and learn more by telling your smart speaker to open Macy's now.